We wanted to make a film that was sort of a ballet, a dramatization of Swan Lake. And so we weren't really afraid of camp and melodrama and, gothic overtones. We really wanted it to be kind of outrageous, the film, and lots of fun. Because I think when you go to the ballet, it's, what the hell are those people wearing, to start? What are they doing? When you're an outsider, it's a very bizarre thing. So we didn't want to escape that. We definitely wanted to sort of embrace it.
Why ballet? You've wanted to make a film about ballet for 10, 12 years.
Yeah. Well, my sister was a dancer growing up, and she took it pretty seriously. And so I always thought it would be an interesting world to explore because I never really understood it. While she was doing ballet, I was doing Little League. What do you call Little League in this country? Saturday football or something?
Sort of, yeah. Baseball.
Or something. And so, but I always thought it would be interesting. When I graduated from film school, I made a list of different ideas for possible worlds to explore in the feature universe, and The Wrestler was one of them, and something in the ballet world was one of them. And so I think audiences like to go to unique places and unique worlds and see details, and so that's why.
When you finished The Wrestler, you revisited the script which you'd been working on for many years. Decided to make your next film. How was the process of getting it made? It was tough to find the financing, which I find strange after The Wrestler.
I agree. After The Wrestler, and everyone was like, "What are you doing, making a film with Mickey Rourke about wrestling? You're destroying your career." And then it turned out okay. And so I thought it would be easier since we had a bona fide movie star with Natalie Portman, an international movie star with Vincent Cassel, and then an incredible supporting cast. And it was set in the world of ballet, which I thought was sexy and scary. But once again, it was a nightmare. It was actually probably more difficult than raising the money for The Wrestler. And I think that's because sort of the gold rush of independent filmmaking, that money has dried up. There's not much prospecting going on in dim hills anymore. So it just got really hard, and 2 weeks before we started shooting, the money actually fell apart. It was funny, this investor took me out to lunch who was paying for the money, and my lawyer was sort of like, they're being very easy, and that's always a problem. And we went out, and I said, well, how does the money work? And he said, well, we get some money, and it's really high-risk money, so they get a good return on their money. And then as the film gets closer, we get new money, and it's got less risk. So, I was like, it sounds like a Ponzi scheme. And he was just totally quiet. And I called the lawyer up. I was like, I think we're in trouble. And literally 2-3 days later, it collapsed. And we were 2 weeks out.
Natalie Portman has been training for 10 months.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to have to tell Natalie Portman that, hey, the good news is you could have a steak. The bad news is, so it was tough. And then we were very lucky to find these investors that, were, very keen, and they came in last minute, and we went back to Fox Searchlight. The problem is that right now, everyone who's trying to make an independent film, there's the people who are investing are in control. So it's they want a lot of things, and the major thing they want is a domestic distributor. And the problem is there's only really one domestic distributor, Fox Searchlight, kind of in the game. There's a few others, but like with serious, serious money and stuff. So Fox Searchlight has complete power and control, and they reign supreme over independent film right now. So, but they happen to be a great company, so it's okay. It's works both ways.
Let's talk a little bit about the influences on Black Swan. It's obviously it's a film of extreme anxiety. I thought Repulsion, Rosemary's Baby, Cronenberg.
I don't know. It's interesting because I was doing an interview today, and someone was saying that all the reviews that coming at it when it was at the Venice Film Festival, where we were at the beginning of September, were comparing it to other movies. And it was all about like a list of 5 films, and every review was talking about that. And I was like, well, why do you think that is, that they were comparing to other movies? And she said she thought people were very confused trying to figure out how to exactly label it and figure out what it is. And I think I've never really been good at hitting a genre right on the nose. Like, I always knew there were horror elements in this, and I always knew there were documentary elements in it. And I just wasn't afraid. I think we can flow between different genres now, audiences, because people are very, seen a lot of stuff, very sophisticated audiences. And, you can go in and out of stuff. I think Tarantino really demonstrated that in that Inglourious Basterds. He just went in and out of comedy and horror and all different types of things.
What are the specific things in the film that you do to create a sense of anxiety?
I don't know. I mean, I guess not the audience not quite being sure what they're seeing at times. We really worked hard on that. We shot it in oh wow, that's cool. We shot a widescreen, which is like about the dimensions of this. So, if the actor's over there, you can sort of mess with things over here and do little slight things. And we did a lot of that. We really played with mirrors. And I didn't see how many people saw the film. Did anyone see the film?
Yeah, I think most people did.
Oh, okay. So if you do get a chance to see it again, which you should pay for it at some point to support independent film. But we really messed with all the mirrors are pretty manipulated and lots of little effects that we just sort of screwed around with.
Obviously, you're playing a lot with notions of doubles in the film. The Odile Odette situation. How did you try and reflect that?
The idea was to shoot it both ways and have them both do the same action and then play with it in the edit room and see what worked best. But it goes back and forth between Mila and Natalie there. And whenever it's Natalie, we kind of hid her a little bit by putting in a few reflections and stuff. But it's a hard line to figure out what an audience thinks and how much they see. So, anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no.
Are you film students or
No.
General public or whatever, as people do? Just so I can figure out how to talk, I mean, should I be selling,
You're doing just fine.
Okay, good.
There are Polanski similarities. I mean, are you a Polanski fan?
Yeah, sure. I think, watching his films taught me about subjective filmmaking because he was really interested in that early in his career, and I think that was a big influence on Pi. Was just, a way of limiting the budget was just to focus on just, Max Cohen's point of view. And I think that's carried over in some of these films, The Wrestler was much more objective, it was more like a documentary about Mickey Rourke trying to act. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I meant that in the best way.
Come to that later.
Yeah. But this we definitely went back to the subjective filmmaking where we're trying to put the audience into Natalie's head as much as possible.
You talk about audience a lot. It's nice to hear because it's what Hitchcock used to do a lot, but a lot of directors don't like to even acknowledge the audience.
Well, I had one of my mentors, Stuart Rosenberg, a guy who directed Cool Hand Luke, who will probably come up again in this conversation because I think of him all the time, said he always had a sign on his desk that said, "Where is my audience now?" And I think that's probably one of his biggest lessons to me, and you have to think about that. I mean, otherwise, who are you making the movie for? You're trying to connect and entertain and communicate, and so you have to think about what they're thinking. And I think the first 20 minutes of the film, for people who come in blind, it's very uncomfortable because, there's Natalie Portman, who they always like, being really kind of annoying and weird and something's off and what is that mother doing and all that stuff. So
Ruth Gordon.
It takes a while, yeah. It takes a while to kind of connect and then hopefully people buy in so that we can rip their hearts out by the end of the film.
Charming. Natalie Portman, I don't think we've ever seen her give a performance like this. It's quite extraordinary, and obviously it looks like she became very involved in it. How did you work with her on this? I mean, she did a lot of training. She was a former ballerina, I think.
Yeah, well, we met 8 years ago, and I just always thought she would make a good ballerina. She has beautiful carriage, and And it turned out that she was a dancer from age 4 to 13 until she did Leon and became a actor. And she always wanted to do a ballet movie. That's what she told her manager. That's what she wanted to do. And so when we met, she was very excited by the idea, but it took a very long time to develop. And we would bump into each other over the years, and she'd be like, I'm getting too old to play a dancer. You better make it soon. And I was like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And I mean, the thing about Natalie is she's so youthful and beautiful that she often gets cast very innocently. And I had the hopes that I would be the one that could sort of scandalize her and make her a woman, you know, because she'd never really dealt with her. You can interpret that any way you want. But she was, I mean, she's very, I mean, I guess in Closer, Mike Nichols kind of showed her a little bit of being a woman, but she really hasn't gotten those opportunities. And I knew her, and I could tell that, you know, there was a lot of dimensions to her. So about a year before we started shooting, she started training. I think it was supposed to be about 8 months, but because we kept losing the money, it turned into a year. Every time we had to push, she was like, another 3 weeks of carrot sticks and almonds, and she would, you know, it was very hurtful. But she did 5 hours a day, and I think actually that physical work really helped with the character. Like the voice thing that she does in the film, she kind of raises her pitch a little bit, and that came from an observation she said. She said, Darren, do you notice that all the dancers talk with a baby voice? And I was like, oh, wow, they do. Well, youth is really way beyond all the ageism in our Western society. I mean, in the ballet world, you know, most of them are retiring by the time they're 33, 35 years old. So it's an extreme case of it. So you have 23, 25-year-old girls talking with this really kind of, I don't know what it is, but like a really soft, girlish voice. And so we decided to work with it and try it, and it kind of became a thing that we developed together. But it was her idea and her observation. So she really got deep into it. And then I think during the shooting, you know, I mean, making a movie is not like doing a play or even doing a ballet. It's, you know, little bits. You have, you know, 5 seconds of being really distraught, you know, 20 seconds of crying. And so I don't think, you know, it doesn't really drive you crazy as long as you don't think about all the work you need to do and you stay in the moment. It was fine. And she's very disciplined and able to do that. So I think it was exhausting, the physical stuff of it, but the emotional stuff I don't think was too hard for her.
It's interesting, Mila Kunis was saying yesterday that whereas actors never think there's a perfect performance, ballet dancers believe that perfection exists, and that's obviously a theme of the art in this film. Do you think it can drive them crazy? Quest for perfection.
Dancers are always going crazy, as far as I can tell. I mean, when we started telling people kind of what the story was, there were a lot, you know, and talking to other dancers, we were like, they had many stories to match us. And I think it's because it's incredibly demanding, incredibly physical, you know, and, you know, certain, I was talking to a dancer yesterday, and she was telling me that, I asked her, are there any dancers that actually live without injury? And she said, yeah, there are a few freaks, is the word she used. She called them freaks. And she said, you know, they all look at us and say,